Adiel, welcome to the show. We did it, man. How does it feel to be Adiel today?
It feels very good and it's very nice to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming in and joining us. I'm excited.
Back in the 1980s, there was a saying that everybody was following. Only buy rental properties within 30 minutes drive of where you live. And everyone followed that. So I did
Yeah.
too. I was following the mantra. So I was living in Palo Alto and buying in Silicon Valley, in Sunnyvale, in San Jose. After a few properties, I realized I couldn't build, an empire doing that. Because even though the numbers were much lower in the 1980s, the ratios were just as bad, just like now. Relative to the home prices, the rents were very low. Didn't work. So I said, okay, listen, in order to build an empire, which I really wanted to, I'm going to have to break that rule. And anyway, who made up this rule? And I'm going to do a little research to find out places where the numbers work better. Now, in the 1980s, we didn't have the web. And Sergey Brin and Larry Page were in kindergarten, I believe. But I still had, access to my research lab at Stanford. And there they had the ARPANET, which is the precursor to the internet. So with a little search, I discovered if I flew about an hour and a half to a little city called Las Vegas, I would find properties there that cost 1/4 of the Silicon Valley prices. But amazingly to me, the rents were more like 1/2 of the Silicon Valley rents. That was infinitely better. I started flying to Vegas every week. I mean, every weekend, I should say, because I had a full-time job. Well, the people in Vegas were very skeptical. I was very young. I always looked younger than my age. Back then, I looked like a boy. And they had never seen a person buying out of state. They were sure I was going to waste their time. So I spent the first couple of months doing what I knew I had to do. If I were to buy properties in Las Vegas, and I live in California, I would need a local property management company to handle my properties. So I interviewed management companies. And after a couple of months, I had a management firm that I liked. I was still very nervous because I never got a chance to really test them in the field, but at least I liked them. And then finally, a local broker took pity on the crazy boy from California and said, I'm going to find you homes. And I started buying. I was always pretty aggressive when it comes to things like that. So in my first year, I bought 22 homes in Vegas. When I began investing, I made a discovery that for me was earth-shattering. I discovered that in this country, and to the best of my knowledge, only in this country, the United States, we get the biggest financial gift in the world, in my opinion at least. The name of the gift is very well known, but very few people, in fact, hardly anyone, thinks that it's a gift. The name of the gift is the 30-year fixed rate mortgage. You know
Yes,
it.
sir.
Nobody thinks about it here in the US because they were born into it, they think it's normal. The only person in the United States that I was in touch with who got it before I explained it is Warren Buffett, who was in touch with me in 2012. He still felt that the values were good post-recession. He wanted to buy a large number of homes. In the back and forth with me, he got what it means to get a 30-year fixed rate loan. But to illustrate why it's an amazing gift, I'll tell you what happens when I get invited to speak in Europe. So here I am, I'm in Europe, I'm speaking to them, and I say, my American buyers can get a loan called 30 years fixed. The Europeans say, what does it mean? Say, well, like the name implies, the monthly payment, principal and interest, never, ever changes with anything. Inflation, cost of living. It is, in a word, fixed.
Mm-hmm.
Also, in addition to that, how much you owe your loan balance, which actually goes down with every payment just a little bit, also doesn't keep up with inflation. The Europeans treat me very harshly, usually. They say, with all due respect, you clearly don't know what you're talking about. I can't believe I drove 100 kilometers to hear you speak. This is nonsense, and we'll prove it to you with logic. You have inflation in the US, right? Right. Always, right? Yes, it seems. Sometimes it's high, sometimes it's low, but it's always there. 40 years ago, you bought a postage stamp for 4 cents. Now it's 72 cents. 40 years ago, you went to the movies in San Francisco for $2. Now it's 15 bucks. If you go to Whole Foods right now and buy a beautiful organic, avocado, it's going to be $3. You know, we know, everybody knows. In 10 years, it's likely to be $5 or $6, right? Mm-hmm. You have inflation. It makes you need more dollars to buy the same goods all the time. So the cost of the tomatoes, the avocado, the rents, the homes, the shoes, the hats, the glasses keeps going up. And you want to tell us that in this kind of an environment, somebody is stupid enough to lend you money for 30 years, no less, that'll be the only thing in the US economy never to change? Criteria number 1, Sun Belt state. Criteria number 2, large metropolitan area for job diversity and economic diversity. Criteria number 3, I like to buy in the suburbs. Families with kids, the kids go to school, it's like a root in the ground, very stable. Criteria number 4, I already mentioned, brand new homes. Many benefits, I have an article about it which I can share. And then affordable. So, I mean, I live in an area where to buy a decent home, you need a couple of $1 million. But we like to buy in places where for $250,000, you can buy a great brand new home. So affordable. So in fact, I was invited a couple of years ago to do a TED talk, a TEDx talk, mm-hmm. and which is only 11 and a half minutes. I'll be happy to share it with you. Mm-hmm. And on the talk, I said, here are the steps. You buy a brand new home in the suburbs of a large metropolitan area in the Sun Belt states. You put a relatively small down payment, you get a 30-year fixed rate loan. You let the local property management team lease it out for you. And then you proceed to do the hardest action for a human being to do. Nothing. Mm-hmm. You just wait. And typically between 12 and 14 years, all your loans look so small, they are negligible. And you have built wealth and you've built all kinds of things. Sometimes I get a call from a Silicon Valley hotshot who says, I just sold a company, I want to buy 100 homes. And I say, how about you buy one? Mm-hmm. I don't care who you are. Even if you're Warren Buffett, start with one. Why? Because people are not used to buying far from home, out of state, even though there's management companies and we are on top of them. And always start with one. Buy your first home, let it rent out, let it become boring and routine. Buying home number 2 is just a repetition of the same process. Buying home number 4 is downright boring a little bit, which is exactly how it should be. Then you want to scale to buy 10? I had a case about 4 years ago. One of my investors sold a commercial property here in the East Bay for $11.5 million and did a 1031 tax deferred exchange into 60 single family homes, 60. Yeah.
That was in one purchase?
One transaction.
That was a nice alignment there, because that could be a paperwork nightmare.
Look, we divided the 60 over 3 markets, 20, 20, and 20. The brokers in those markets have worked with so many 1031 exchanges. They know exactly what needs to meet the exchange timelines. So they round up the builders. They say, here, we need properties that are ready or near ready. We work with an exchange facilitator, a qualified intermediary, and we made it happen. That was an intense exchange. But the typical exchange is somebody comes and say, oh, I have a home that I use as a rental here. It's $1.5 million. I want to sell it, and then I'm buying 12 homes or 14. Those are not that hard. And sometimes people actually sell the homes they bought with us. So somebody says, remember me, I bought a home with you in Phoenix. Now it's worth $550,000. And the loan is almost zero, as we said. I'm going to sell that home and buy 4 brand new homes instead. Those are very simple exchanges, and also a way to beef up your portfolio.